All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to restart this AMA here from the beginning. We've got Jason, we've got Yoli on the screen, and we've got me, otherwise known as Tom, here, and we're going to go with it. Welcome to the Auditchain January 2023 AMA, live from Davos, Switzerland. I may not have said that correctly again, but my American accent and way of pronouncing European names is not so good. But anyway, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, wherever you are in the world watching this. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Striking in the digital media world, and I'm very happy to be on with Yoli and Jason here of Auditchain. Normally, I'm the host of the DYOR Media Network, but here I'm hosting this AMA that's very important to the Auditchain community and to the project today, because hopefully we're going to hear the updates after this big trip to the Crypto Summit at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. We have a great agenda for you tonight or this afternoon. For those of you, a few housekeeping items watching on YouTube. If you have a comment, drop it in the comment section. We'll pass it to the team and we'll try to get to the answer if it's not already covered. If you're in Telegram, we are entertaining comments there by typing and also by voice if there's time for that at the end of the show. Let's see, what else? Our agenda for today, our topics that we're going to be going over here for the AMA, recent developments in the Auditchain ecosystem, business developments and new marketing efforts, and how those business developments, the effort is shaping the future of Auditchain and the future of the audit profession. How is the crypto space looking at Auditchain in light of recent developments? We all know that crypto, as I say every week on these shows, it's been quite a week, but it's been quite a few months in crypto since the whole FTX issue started, and the focus on trust and assurance really came to the forefront, and it's pretty much where Auditchain is positioned. And also, we want to talk about partnerships, the impact of partnerships on trust, and then as my fun quip of the evening, just like Prime Ministers Justin Trudeau and Rishi Sunak, it's time for question period. So everybody, welcome to the show today. I'd like to introduce Yoli Chisholm, the Chief Marketing Officer, and of course, our lead architect for the whole project, Jason Meyer. Yoli, Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom, for that awesome welcome. And welcome to the community. Welcome to the Auditchain community. We're looking forward to sharing some updates. So Jason, it's been exciting to see Auditchain included in the Crypto Valley Top 50. Can you talk about what this acknowledgement means for you and the team, especially considering the journey to get to here, to this place, and then the opportunity going forward?
Thanks, Yoli. Good to see you. Again, to the community, sorry for the technical difficulties. What does it mean? Well, I can tell you what it means for me personally, how I feel about it. I've been here for almost 5 years, and it is very hard to integrate into the Swiss business community. In fact, it's probably 10 times harder than gaining US citizenship. And for us to be included in the top 50 of Crypto Valley that's a whole nother level. I can't even describe how what it feels like. It's really like we finally got here. That's the way it feels, right? You really got to do a lot of work. These are hardworking people. They're very deliberate. They're very methodical. They're very organized. And, for an American, it's kind of awkward, right? And for us to be included was really, I really feel like a part of this community. Spiritually, I feel like a part of this community now. So, I'm sitting in the same room at the CV Labs Lounge where we had a dinner the other night, which unveiled the top 50 projects and companies in the Valley, and it was wonderful. It's kind of like winning an Oscar for me. I don't know. That's how it feels.
Well, it's an acknowledgement of the work. And so maybe let's segue into, the past 12 months. Can you give a sense of some of the high level milestones in the product roadmap that the team has been working on, and give us a sense of what products are live now and ready to do business?
So our Luca suite is ready. With the Luca suite, a government can compose a financial reporting taxonomy or a report model and prescribe it as a method of financial reporting to specify financial reporting. An enterprise can also amend a taxonomy, financial reporting taxonomy. They can create a report model, they can use an existing model, and they can articulate their financial state, which is to say, in accounting speak, they can create financial statements, right? Um, the Pacioli logic and rules engine reads, understands, and validates financial statements created inside of Luca, but also created by other software providers, which ultimately output financial statements that get filed with regulators. So we are able to determine inconsistencies in those financial statements filed using other software in a way that goes undetected by either the software, external audit, external reporting, or the chief financial officer at the company. And for those who didn't take part, there was a campaign where our community submitted for analysis 3,000 financial reports filed with the SEC, I believe as of September 30th, 2022. And it was found that almost half of them contained some sort of inconsistency, whether that was a trivial syntactical error or a violation of fundamental accounting concepts, accounting rules, the application of those rules, mathematical output as the result of the application, and the impact on any of the other line items, which really renders those financial statements not usable or unreliable. So we are ready to bring this into the world of centralized crypto exchanges, and that's our go-to-market strategy because they're the ones that need it the most.
Let's touch on that a little bit. Given the current state of the market, it sounds like you think that the exchanges are our ideal customer for Auditchain. What's the key problem that Auditchain is solving for them?
So the opaque nature of a cryptocurrency exchange is the main problem. The
Yeah.
integrity and reliability of on-chain data. You don't know whether or not who's turning those keys to prove that those wallets are controlled by the exchange and whether or not the value belongs to the exchange or belongs to customers. The other
Right.
problem is the opaque nature of those proof of reserves reports that were withdrawn a few weeks ago by the accounting profession, which pulled out of the space, the audit profession. And, you know, look, in the legacy world, these problems, they exist to a limited extent. Once in a while, the world blows up. We've seen it in 2008. Um, but I'll give you a prime example where Coinbase publishes its periodic financial statements with the SEC. If you lie in those documents, God help you.
Mm.
So, how we solve these problems is by allowing a centralized crypto exchange, which has to get ready for this, by the way. And readiness means controls, controls around custody, controls around accounting, controls around wallet addresses, controls around how they account for their own money, right? Um, what you'll be able to see when an exchange articulates its financial state is you will see an asset that includes customer funds, but you'll also see an offsetting liability of those customer funds in a separate section of the financial state articulation. At the end of the day, these numbers are included in a balance sheet, a comprehensive balance sheet. What you must be able to see is the total assets, which belongs to the exchange itself and to customers. When you deduct total liabilities, you will see the equity that is left over. The equity that is left over belongs to the owners of the exchange, right? It's the basic language of business expressed in the form of the accounting equation: total assets minus total liabilities equals equity. If it's a negative number, there's a problem. And unless they fill that gap with either additional financing from investors or borrowings from investors in their debt, then we have a shortfall in what is supposed to be a 1-to-1 ratio within custody.
So is that what you mean when we talk about proof of state and the distinction and why proof of reserves isn't adequate?
Proof of reserves only looks at custody. It does not look at the liabilities of the corporate entity. So
Right.
they can be in debt for far more money than their equity, and that puts customer assets in jeopardy. They're also supposed to be segregated. Customer assets belong to customers in a separate custody environment. The assets that belong to the exchange owners belongs in a separate custody environment, and the two should never be commingled. And that's a regulatory requirement in the legacy world, by the way.
So what are people saying in with the collapse of FTX and other crypto firms, before them and after them, what do you think the regulatory environment is going to look like, in the years to come, especially with the SEC seeming to be a little bit more active now in terms of taking actions?
You're going to have to register as an exchange. What kind of exchange? That's a separate conversation. But if you're trading what looks to be like securities, you're going to have to either register under the 34 Act in the United States or the extraterritorial equivalent elsewhere in the world, and elsewhere in the world. Or if you're trading only Bitcoin or Ethereum, you may have to register as some sort of a commodities exchange. But all of those regulations prescribe financial disclosure and audit for the exchanges themselves, no matter what they're trading. So they're
Well,
only going to end up doing what they're going to be required to do anyway.
so it sounds like there are some updates from a company standpoint. What can you share about new partnerships with stakeholders in the ecosystem?
So today we announced a partnership with Volpex, who is a liquidity provider. Volpex will be introducing the Auditchain protocol into the exchanges that they currently deal with now. And they will operate a Pacioli node, one or more Pacioli nodes. They're also going to join the DCARP Alliance, which is an association here in Zug of members of the accounting, audit, financial reporting, liquidity provider, standard setter, academic, and legal community, as well as the investment community, right? And that's the first of a number of partnerships that has actually been signed. And as we clear them, we will release them and
Excellent.
we will tell the community.
That's exciting.
Jason, tell us what Volpex does.
Volpex is a liquidity solutions provider. They're a market maker, and they make markets on most centralized exchanges.
And why do you think the market maker would be interested in leveraging Auditchain? Why do you think the problem we solve for them is important from their standpoint?
So, as a stakeholder community, market makers represent roughly half of all of the value on all centralized exchanges. Okay, so if one of them fails, They're going to be the ones that get hurt the most. Plus, the projects that they make markets for, their capital will get hurt the most. And if a project loses its funds, it jeopardizes the existence of the project. So you can link financial reporting and assurance, external validation, to the health of the ecosystem. Because if a number of exchanges go down, well, then you have a lot of market makers and projects that are hurt. That hurts the whole system. It's a domino effect. It causes contagion, and it's systemic.
Some people say that the market makers are the majority of the volume on most of these exchanges. Is that a correct statement from your point of view, Jason?
On some exchanges, yes. On others, no.
Understood. So this Volpex is a high volume, thus they have a very high profile, and people want to know how they're doing when they trust them with their money.
Projects want to know how they're doing when they trust them with their money. Projects deposit their money on exchanges, and market makers exercise trading authorization over those accounts and treasury management. So everyone wants to know what condition the exchange is in financially before and during, before you deposit your assets and while your assets are in custody with that exchange.
Well,
So
that can only be a good thing.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
in this case, Volpex, as I said, they execute through most major crypto exchanges and execution venues, and they've got a state-of-the-art liquidity engine that is capable of managing in excess of 3,000 orders per second.
Wow. And any updates on the addition of Auditchain to additional exchanges?
The only thing I can tell you is that there is ongoing dialogue with exchanges now. As we clear for release who the other market makers are, they are working on dialogues with exchanges now. And that's all I can say at the moment.
Exciting. It also looks like Auditchain has added some new members to the team. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Jason?
Sure. We, Tom Egan, who is a CPA in multiple jurisdictions, was elected to the board of directors, and he is chair of the audit committee. And he'll be developing that committee. He will also be playing an active role in product input. Tom lives in the real world. He is ex-Deloitte auditor, ex-chief audit advisor for Standard Chartered, ex-chief accounting advisor for IATA, which he just left, and now he spends the majority of his time with us.
Awesome. And we'll probably bring Tom on some subsequent podcasts so you guys can hear from him. This might be a good point to transition, Tom, to questions from the community. Do we have any questions in chat that we want to bring up?
Let's see. Let me get to the point about that. Jason, if you could, sorry, excuse me, I was jumping ahead of myself. Let me get the questions up here.
And while I've got one that I could throw in here
Go
while
ahead.
you're pulling that up. Maybe just any updates on, for those who are not familiar with, what staking programs we have. Jason, what can you share about staking?
So staking involves, in plain English, backing a Pacioli node operator. And what you'll do is delegate your stake to a Pacioli node operator, and you'll earn passive income based upon what that node operator earns.
Awesome. We do have another question here. Could you explain the process of what a company has to do in order to adopt Auditchain?
Yeah, I love that question. So the first thing that needs to happen is they got to get ready. And that is actually a term called readiness. Readiness involves installing and implementing controls that are sufficient to govern a properly functioning economic entity. So, what type of controls? Well, controls around custody. Who can access custody? What level of access do they have? How many key turns must occur? Access to an accounting system. How many people have access to that accounting system? What roles do each person who has access to those accounting systems? The way data flows from custody and bifurcates revenue journal entries into an accounting system. Because when you trade as a customer on an exchange, that generates revenue, right? And there's custody movements because you're debiting a wallet in custody that belongs to the customer, and you're crediting another wallet that belongs to another customer who is custodied by the same exchange. And there needs to be controls around that. There needs to be controls around how revenue is captured. Who can access those controls? What level of access do they have? There's all sorts of human resources systems. How you record your employees, how much you pay your employees, how much you pay your contractors. Are they contractors? There's tax considerations, right? But from a mechanics perspective, there is a cryptographic fabric that stretches between custody and accounting and transactions all the way to financial reporting and external validation so that we can detect, strike that. What the Pacioli validators can detect whether or not these controls were tampered with, whether or not they were circumvented, or whether they failed for whatever reason, right? It gives the exchange a chance to remediate and resume its normal functioning operations of those controls. And it gives the public the ability to know that the financial condition, which is dependent upon the control environments, are all operating pursuant to functional specifications, and that their exchange is financially healthy enough, which will give enough comfort to someone to make a deposit or keep their money on the exchange.
Now, you mentioned Volpex and the market makers running a node. Can you talk about who else in the ecosystem can run a node? And we do have a question. Does it require a server or can it be done on one PC?
So it can be done on a PC, but you're not going to get the type of bandwidth and technical response that you would need to win validations. The winners are usually those who install their nodes on servers that are fast, with the fastest chipsets, with the fastest incoming and outgoing bandwidth, the fastest amount of RAM, so that they can win races, right?
Right.
Um, it's preferable that you run it on a ISO SOC compliant server environment, but technically speaking, that's not required. Um, we have also entered into I'll call it a memorandum of understanding with an infrastructure provider, which is going to get announced over the next couple of days, where if you're an accountant or anyone who is not technically proficient, in order to remove the technical friction, you'll go to the infrastructure provider. You'll be 4 to 5 clicks away from running a Pacioli node.
And will those nodes follow the SOC or ISO standards you just mentioned?
Well, those are like hosting companies. So the hosting company should
Has
have
their
a
own
SOC
standards.
report. Right. They have they're not their own standards, but SOC reports are standard in data centers. They're standard in custody environments. And it's an engagement that covers the examination of control environments for a service organization that plays a role in providing a service by a third party. So, for instance, copper who provides custody environments will be used by a centralized exchange, and the SOC report needs to cover the process of copper and the process of the centralized exchange in order to prove to other stakeholders that their systems are operating pursuant to functional objectives in a support environment and in a production environment.
We did get a question about the process of creating NFTs, and maybe you can just talk a little bit about some potential use cases for NFTs in the Auditchain ecosystem.
So what I can tell you is this: financial reporting controls, audit controls, let's call them validation controls. We don't like to use the word audit because our methodology does not fit squarely within an audit standard. And we want to be nice to regulators. We want them to be nice to us. So those types of controls are outputted by Luca. And if you can create, for instance, a formula in an Excel spreadsheet and upload that Excel spreadsheet, Luca will output the necessary files that constitute the control. It illustrates who created the control, what their wallet address is, who proved that that control works correctly, because they also get externally validated. And you can then claim the control once it's been admitted and it's been proven to work correctly. And when you claim that control, you're actually claiming an NFT that represents that control, and it goes into your wallet. And every time that control gets used on the network, the creator gets paid a royalty, and the validator that proved that it works correctly also gets paid a royalty. That control can then be included in part of a control set, which will be used by, in this case, a centralized exchange, in order to get them ready to articulate and undergo proof of state on the Auditchain protocol.
All right, Tom, any more questions on your end?
Yeah, we have a follow-up question from social media about integrating into companies. A lot of the larger companies, outside of the immediate crypto exchanges that you're talking about, but bringing this to a larger base, use large ERP systems like SAP and so forth. How would you see the Luca software integrating into a company that already has an established huge system that they've spent a lot of money, getting just right, or just wrong?
Easy. That's easy. So those accounting systems have trial balances, and you integrate those trial balances with the Luca suite, and you map them to your control set and your taxonomy. They are cryptographically reinforced, so if they're tampered with, Pacioli's going to know about it.
So when the person at the large company that's in charge of the Luca software takes the trial balances, creates the I believe that it's called XBRL files.
They map each of their trial balances to an XBR, to specific definitions in an XBRL taxonomy.
Right.
And for those who are listening, just so you know, XBRL is a global standard for financial reporting in 60 jurisdictions across 100 regulatory agencies.
It's a very standardized language. It's based on XML for those that understand computer languages. But that goes into the node system and gets validated. And from what you've explained and other people have explained to me, that if there's a failure, then that can come back into the person that created it at the accounting company or at the large company, see their failure, and they can then work to be compliant. Is that correct? Yeah. It kind of goes both ways?
Yeah. So what happens is you get a chance to perform internal audit and testing before transmitting your financial state. And then once you have, in a lot of ways, Pacioli won't let you make a mistake. If there's a logical mistake, you're not going to be able to move forward until you correct it. If there's a mathematical mistake, it's the same thing. So you'll have a chance to create a perfectly functioning ability to articulate financial state before it's passed to external validators for external validation.
So Jason, we do have a question about the future of Auditchain. You know, where do you see Auditchain a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? You know, maybe talk about, you know, the adoption of Auditchain more broadly in other parts of the ecosystem,
Well,
including.
I'll tell you what has become clear. Once centralized exchanges begin to adopt, what's going to take shape, as has taken shape before, is the crypto world will demonstrate to the legacy world what accounting, audit, and financial reporting looks, feels, and functions like, much the same way Bitcoin showed the legacy banking system what monetary policy and peer to peer value transfer demonstrated to them. It doesn't or didn't fit into a regulatory box before, but we're headed in the right direction. I don't think that's going to be any different with us. So we're not going to fit into a regulatory box squarely at this moment. But as adoption occurs, the road will get clearer and clearer, much the same way it did for other crypto asset or cryptographic systems, decentralized systems. So once that starts to take shape, you'll then have a far higher degree of willingness um, and the willingness to collaborate and try it by larger, much larger enterprises. You'll have a willingness to recognize it by standard setters and regulators. However, pending that condition, we have the DCARP Alliance. And the DCARP Alliance will standardize, it will adopt existing standards, such as XBRL, or we will create new standards.
Excellent.
Speaking of, sorry, I want to follow up on your standards question. Right, we had someone ping me earlier before the show about standards when I was trying to explain it to them. Many of these larger companies have standards for their accounting departments that, as you well know, are very rote and routine. You do this, you do this, you do this, and you must follow these procedures to produce these results. When we add in Auditchain into it and the digital, the blockchain, the crypto end of it, you need a crypto wallet in order to have the Auditchain to pay for the validating and the gas. Is there a method to introduce the ability for accounting departments to work these standards in? I think it's not all companies will allow the people in their accounting departments to have a crypto wallet with the company money on it. There's standards for credit cards. Is there standards and policies being developed to allow people to have company crypto wallets?
The answer is yes, those standards have not been officially adopted yet. What I can say, right now, we are in the middle of integrating USDC, which will sit on top of the protocol, so that if a controller, a conservative one, or CFO doesn't want to deal with the volatility of an audit token, the audit token becomes a rail and they can pay with USDC, which means they will connect with a wallet address. They can also connect via Web 2. So if nobody has a wallet, you can use a username and password. However,
I see.
I will say this. There's an agreement right now that's in our possession where we're going to partner with a digital ID provider, and that digital ID takes the form of an NFT, and the storage facility for all of the data that's associated with that digital ID, which includes your role with the company, who you're affiliated with, which company, whether or not you have an accreditation, what is that accreditation, if there's any continuing education associated with that accreditation, and whether or not you're up to date. that requires a Web3 wallet. So, in a way, enterprises will be, listen, enterprises now are all experimenting with Web3. They're all getting used to connecting something with a wallet, right? They're all getting used to key management.
Mhm.
Have they perfected it yet? No. But there are many other companies that play a role in proper governance of key management policies. So we're a lot farther along than most people realize. Every bank has overtly announced their Web3 or crypto strategy or has a skunkworks project in which they're working on one now. We are a lot closer than people think. I hear all the time that the banks are behind. No, they are not behind.
That sounds like
Hold on a second. Let me qualify that. Not only are they not behind, they used the crypto space as their de facto R&D facility, and now
Absolutely.
they know what to do going forward.
Absolutely. I've said this for a while that we've seen players come in and out of the market, and you have to imagine that some of them were JP Morgan and the big banks
They are.
testing it out under pseudonyms and other names and seeing
Yes.
how they can extract as much money as they can out of this as a test, as their very own test net.
Now,
Yeah,
as they
or
say.
acquiring
listen,
smaller companies.
it's finance centric, right? So a company that makes bricks or cement is less likely to have a Web3 strategy or a blockchain implementation or on their way to it than a financial institution or a fashion house, apparel companies. Anything that's associated with a popular brand seems to be adopting Web3. So the wallet issue and connecting to a disclosure control architecture is not going to have as much friction as everybody thinks it will.
Well,
I
Jason,
do have a few more questions from the group here live, Yoli. Cody on Telegram asks, what do you think are going to be the most commonly used types of process controls on Auditchain? I realize that's a vast statement or question there,
Yeah.
but
So the type of controls that'll be used, I think I had explained, controls that access accounting systems, controls that provide levels of access. Most accounting systems already have those controls. The question of being able to detect whether or not they have been circumvented is unanswered, and that is, we will be able to detect whether or not a control like that has been circumvented, breached, or if it failed. So, another form of control, for instance, is part of your reporting control set. The accounting equation is a control. We own that control. The accounting equation is the Burj Khalifa of all accounting controls. Any other accounting control is going to call the accounting equation. They all are subservient to the accounting equation, which is why it's so critical that custody only be a practice that be recklessly abandoned as soon as possible.
yeah, yeah.
all right, Ro, or one question says, have you had the chance, I think he came in late to this because you've probably addressed this, and based on where you are today, but have you had to talk with Auditchain at Crypto Valley?
Well, we live in Crypto Valley, so we're in Davos right now, and pretty much all of Crypto Valley is in Davos this week for
Right.
WEF Week, right? And we are at the CV Labs Lounge, which is just off the promenade in Davos, right?
So
And I
Ro,
do want
if you're there, you go find Jason. You'll see him with a laptop talking to me.
Yeah.
Yes, I need to give a plug. Yeah, if any of you are in Davos right now, I'll give you the address. Just give me a second. Oberstrasse 33 in Davos. Plug that into your Google Maps. It's pretty much as I said, it's the street just behind and above the promenade.
Excellent.
Yep.
Well, thank you, Jason, so much for giving us an update. 2022 ended with such a bang, was such an unpredictable year. Any predictions for 2023 in terms of the crypto space? Thoughts on where we think things are going to go in terms of adoption? Are we positive or not, optimistic or not, bearish or not?
Price is not something I talk about.
Sure.
What we do talk about is building. And I can tell you right now, everyone in the Valley is like, thank God that's over. We can now build without all these damn distractions, right? And that's not just me talking, it's everyone in the Valley.
Excellent.
So,
well, there's a lot to build and there's a lot of updates coming. So thank you so much for the community for tuning in.
Yes, thank you to everyone. There are other questions that we'll address in the Telegram room itself. We'll answer those for you. I want to thank everybody for coming today. My apologies for the technical snafu at the beginning of this, but we had a nice event here. We had a large crowd on YouTube watching us. We had a lot of people in our Telegram room and a lot of great questions that weren't originally covered by Jason's detailed statement on what's going on here. Jason, thanks for announcing the partnership. That is a big news.
There'll be more.
And more is coming along. So everyone, thank you so much. Any last comments, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, I got one. I just really, look, a lot of these top lists, they're organized, you pay to play. I can tell you this right now, the principals at CVVC who published that report, we did not pay them. It was a surprise to us yesterday or the day before to learn that we were included in that top 50. It is an objective report. If you don't know what it is, go to CVVC, find the report. We've tweeted it already. Read that report. It's like 70 pages. It's chock full of incredible information, and we're just happy to be a part of it. So a plug out to the author of the report for selecting us and including us in that report. And to everybody at CV Labs and CVVC, we love you guys.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. I'm happy to be a part of this little group helping you guys out here, getting the message out. And as Jason says, there's going to be a lot more messages. And we will see you later for On the Brink episode, whatever the next one is, 15 or 16.
I think
have a good one, everyone.
All right, Jason, enjoy the rest.
Thank you, everybody. If you're in Davos, come see me.
All right, everyone. Have a good one.